So you have set up this beautiful scene and you want to convert this scene into an image. It's just like taking a picture. So if you pick up your phone now and you take a picture of your screen, you would see a 2D image from this 3D environment that you have created. And that's the same concept when we talk about rendering our scenes in Blender. To render a scene in Blender, we will start with adding a camera. To add a camera, you can just come over to the scene and click Shift A and go to camera, and now you have a camera in your scene. I remember introducing the concept of cameras where you can switch to the view of the camera by tapping on this icon here. So right now we can not see anything, and this is because as we imported the camera, or as we added the camera to the scene, it took the position of the origin. So it's at the origin position and there's nothing that we can see right now. So we can tap out of that. We can also use numpad 0 to switch between what our camera is seeing and the general scene. Now we can manually move the camera around by clicking G and Z and moving it up, and we can go to 0 and we can see, what the camera is seeing right now. So if I were to take a picture, or if I were to render this scene, what will come out as my final image will be what is in this square over here. So it's not going to see the remaining area, it's just going to be focused on what's in this square. Now just tap out of that camera view. Now we've talked about a quick way to constrain the camera to the views using the axis Z, Y, X and all. But another beautiful thing about Blender is that you can position the viewports to however way you like and move the camera to that view. Now we can see this scene arranged like this. If I want my camera to be seeing exactly what I am seeing, all I just need to do is Ctrl Alt numpad 0. And now I have the camera taking the position of my eyes. How cool is that? So we can go ahead to rendering this area, and to do so we need to first check some of these settings over here. The first thing I'll look at is this button here that says the camera icon here, and just to let you know that you can adjust the focal length of the camera and you can get the camera farther or nearer to the scene. Now we're currently on the perspective view, meaning that there's sort of like a vanishing point to this scene. We can also decide to work on any other of these types of camera, but for now let's leave it as perspective. So I have set my focal length, I've set the type, I left it as perspective. Now the next thing I will look at is the render properties. We initially switched from EV to cycles when we talked about the render engine, and we set up the device to GPU compute. And remember we talked about the fact that you can set up your GPU by going to Edit, Preferences, System, and you can toggle on your GPU. So what we want to do here is we can scroll down a bit and check on this sampling. Now this sampling here helps us to have some options to remove this grainy effect we're seeing. Now this grainy effect is what we call noise, and to remove the noise from the scene I will click on denoise. Now take note that we have the sampling for the viewport and we have the sampling for the render. the viewport sampling helps us to see sort of like a preview for what we would see when we are rendering our scene. Now we can go over to the sampling for the viewport and click on denoise, and you can see that it's looking like it's generating an AI image. So it's kind of, you know, making the scene to be smoother in a way, and I think it's going to give us you know, a better result at the end of the day. So I like what I'm seeing for the viewport, so I will add the denoise for the render. Now another thing to note is that this maximum samples tells your system how long should you keep on iterating and rendering the image. So you would need to set it to a lower value, especially if you want to save time or computational power. So we would work with a lower figure. In this case, this is for the viewport right now, and we can just click on 256 if we want it to be lesser, for calculating you know, how to generate the images as fast as possible in our scene. But this is the end goal, the render region. So we'll go to the render max samples and click type 256. So this is what I just need. Once I have that set up, I can scroll down a bit and you would see color management, and it's just like working in, you know, some of this software, let's say like Photoshop or Lightroom, where you can add like a filter to what you're working on. In this case, we have the look set to medium contrast. You might have yours set to none, so you can look through and see the effect it's giving you, so you can see the different changes that I'm getting for you know, the look for this scene. So I think I like medium low contrast. And you can also change the, let me show you clearly, the view transform, in the sense that you can work with, you know, different kind of effects. Let's say it's you know, an old kind of 90s setting, you can add this filmic effect there. You can try different effects there. This gives it more of the 90s vibe. So I think I love it as standard because I want it to be sharper. For the exposure, you can make it a little bit brighter depending on the effect you want to get. So I think I'm good with this, and I can move on to the next. The next thing I'll talk about now is the output properties, and this is where you can dictate where your rendered image should be saved, in the sense that you can go over to this button here, and once you click on it, you can get a temporary place to save your designs, or you can navigate to a place in your system that you want to be saving your designs. I would leave it as the temporary place for now. So another thing to note is, if you scroll up a bit, you will see that you have this resolution. One other important thing is to toggle on the render region. Now this render region helps us to ease the stress on our computer. What I want to do is I just want to focus on the area that will come out in the final image, that's for the render region. So I will toggle this on, and you can see that the entire other area here is grayed out, and this is my focus. So once you do all that, I think we are now good to go and we can render our image. To do so, we'll just go to this button here and click on render, and click on render image, and you can see what's going on here, and you can see this sample that we set. So I think I like what I'm seeing, and I'll just leave it to render. So this is the final image that we have generated. You can see that if I scroll in a bit more, it's grained out, and that's because of the resolution that we set. So the higher it is, the clearer the image will be. So it depends on what you're trying to achieve. So that's it. We have our final image, and we'll now move on to the next.